Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Market Mantra, Market Mantra.
इस कार्यक्रम के प्रायोजक नेशनल पेंशन सिस्टम एनपीएस। अपना बेहतर कल सुनिश्चित करने के लिए एनपीएस जरूरी है। जीवन में स्थिरता के साथ साथ एनपीएस आपको आर्थिक आजादी भी देता है। 18 से 70 वर्ष की आयु के बीच का कोई भी भारतीय नागरिक और कॉर्पोरेट कर्मचारी एनपीएस से जुड़ सकता है। किसी भी पीओपी जैसे बैंकों, एनबीएफसी के जरिए या npstrust.org.in के ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म के जरिए आप अपना एनपीएस खाता खोल सकते हैं। सुरक्षित भविष्य के लिए एनपीएस जरूरी है।
This is Akashvani. Good evening and welcome to Market Mantra, our program in which we give you a complete update on the economic news of the day. I'm Gaura Dhawanlal and with me is my co-anchor Vibhuti Mishra.
धन्यवाद गौरा। नमस्कार श्रोताओं, मार्केट मंत्र में आपका स्वागत है, जहां हम आज देश और विदेश की आर्थिक, व्यापारिक और शेयर बाजार की ताज़ा खबरें आप तक लाए हैं और उन पर चर्चा भी करेंगे। चर्चा के लिए आज हमारे स्टूडियो में आमंत्रित हैं वरिष्ठ आर्थिक पत्रकार सिद्धार्थ सिंह। सिद्धार्थ जी नमस्कार, मार्केट मंत्र में आपका स्वागत है।
नमस्कार।
और सबसे पहले अंग्रेजी में हेडलाइंस के साथ हैं मेरी सहयोगी गौरा धवनलाल।
Thank you, Vibhuti, and Siddharth, welcome to the program. A quick look at the headlines. Benchmark indices tumble over 1%. Sensex declines 790 points. Nifty ends below 22,000 level. Tepid sentiment seen in global markets. Major Asian stocks end lower except South Korea's KOSPI. And central government to launch fodder bank in various regions of India to improve storage, transport and logistics.
प्रमुख घरेलू शेयर बाजार 1% से ज्यादा लुढ़के। सेंसेक्स में 790 अंकों की गिरावट, निफ्टी 22,000 अंकों के नीचे बंद। वैश्विक बाजारों में कमजोरी, साउथ कोरिया के कोस्पी को छोड़कर बड़े एशियाई सूचकांकों में गिरावट। और भंडारण, परिवहन और लॉजिस्टिक्स समस्याओं के निवारण के लिए केंद्र सरकार विभिन्न क्षेत्रों में चारा बैंक शुरू करेगी। और सबसे पहले शेयर बाजार की खबर। कमजोर वैश्विक बाजार रुझानों के बीच पीएसयू बैंक और ऊर्जा शेयरों में बिकवाली के कारण आज प्रमुख घरेलू शेयर सूचकांकों में 1% से अधिक की गिरावट आ गई, जबकि निफ्टी 22,000 के स्तर से नीचे आ गया। सेंसेक्स 790 अंक या 1.08% गिरकर 72,305 पर और निफ्टी 247 अंक या 1.10% गिरकर 21,951 पर बंद हुआ। और रुपये का हाल जान लेते हैं कि आज विदेशी मुद्रा बाजार में भारतीय रुपया अमेरिकी डॉलर के मुकाबले 82 रुपये और 93 पैसे पर बंद हुआ। विश्व की 6 प्रमुख मुद्राओं की तुलना में डॉलर की मजबूती दर्शाने वाला डॉलर इंडेक्स दिन के कारोबार में 104.16 पर था।
Benchmark indices plunged more than 1%, while the Nifty ended below the 22,000 level today, pulled down by selling in PSU banks and energy stocks amid weak global market trends. The Sensex tumbled 790 points or 1.08% to close at 72,305, and the Nifty plunged 247 points or 1.1% to finish at 21,951. In the Sensex index, which is a pack of 30 companies, shares of 26 companies declined, while those of only 4 companies appreciated. Among the Sensex firms, Power Grid, Maruti, IndusInd Bank, Mahindra & Mahindra and Wipro were the biggest laggards. Hindustan Unilever, Tata Consultancy Services, Infosys and Bharti Airtel were the gainers. In the broader market at the BSE, the mid-cap index declined 0.82%, while the small-cap index fell 1.94%. In the sectoral indices at the BSE, utilities, power and realty sectors tumbled over 2%. Siddharth, how do you see the market's performance today, and then link it to the global markets, please?
I think basically it was a mirror image of the what was happening in the global markets. I think it is also a fallout of what basically people are expecting in US. I think crucial data on consumption expenditure is expected, and as it is being presumed that it may be good, so would probably push back the rate cuts, which has been over expected for a long time, I think. Plus also what is happening in China property market. So all that turmoil, I think, which I think got reflected today in the Indian stock market. But overall, I don't see any immediate cause of concern in terms of our own macro fundamentals. But yes, markets do react to these events, and I think some kind of profit booking also at these levels.
Right. So do you think somewhere the the expectations of what the US Fed might be doing has been built into the market over the past 1 week or so?
Yeah, it has been built in, and I think probably we are getting mixed cues. So some time back it was expected that rate cut would come in, but now again then it is being expected that it may not come in. It may not happen as soon as it was expected. So I think all that uncertainty is also getting reflected. People are getting jittery, so they are reacting to these kind of events. So I think it will take a while. I think going forward, once we get these kind of there is clarity on what is going to happen, probably we get this data. Plus I think some kind of instability also is coming off because of these global events which keep happening, small events which are taking place. But and markets, I think obviously they are at a level, some profit booking we should expect someday. But I don't see this as a matter of concern. Yes, we always say that if you are a retail investor or an investor or a new investor, if you're coming to the market, you need to be patient. Don't expect immediate,
and strong-hearted, not faint-hearted.
Yeah, and strong-hearted, and as long as you should be very clear that you're not looking at immediate gains. That is the, I think, underlying factor one should keep in mind.
ये तीसरा कारोबारी दिन है आज, और आपने तो कारण बताए ही हैं सारे, लेकिन देखिए मतलब कुछ छोड़ दें तो 26 में लगभग जो है ये गिरावट दर्ज हुई है, और बैंकिंग सेक्टर में, ऑटो पावर सेक्टर में इनमें ज़्यादा ये हुआ है।
तो आप विभूति जी एक बात ये भी तो ध्यान दें कि बैंकिंग सेक्टर में आपको तेज़ी भी खूब देखने को मिली है, ऑटो सेक्टर में भी काफ़ी तेज़ी देखने को मिली है। तो अगर वो तेज़ी है तो कुछ लोग उसमें अपना मुनाफा वसूली भी करेंगे ही। तो मुझे लगता है कहीं ना कहीं मार्केट डायनेमिक भी है ना। तो आप इधर हाल फिलहाल में देखेंगे, अगर आप बैंकिंग क्षेत्र के शेयर जो है वो PSU स्टॉक्स हों, एक्सेप्ट 1-2 छोड़ दें, मतलब नाम हम लोग नहीं लेते प्रोग्राम में, तो आप ज़्यादातर देखेंगे कि बैंकिंग क्षेत्र में, क्योंकि प्रॉफिट्स सरकारी बैंकों के खासकर बहुत अच्छा इस साल मतलब एक्सपेक्टेड है कि एक तो जो पुराने जो कर्ज, जो उनके बैड लोन्स हैं, उनकी जो वसूली हो रही है, जो हम नया कानून लाए, इंसॉल्वेंसी बैंक्रप्सी कोड जो लेके आए थे आज से कुछ साल पहले, तो अब वो रियली उसके जो फ़ायदे हैं वो दिख रहे हैं ग्राउंड पे। तो इस साल अकेले जो साल बीता है, कारोबारी साल 2022-23, उसमें सरकारी बैंकों का मुनाफा अकेले 1 लाख करोड़ के आसपास था। इस साल एक्सपेक्टेड है 2024 के जब कारोबारी साल ख़त्म होता है मार्च में, ऐसा अनुमान है कि 1,30,000 करोड़ के ऊपर वो जो है मुनाफा होगा सरकारी बैंकों का अकेले। तो कुछ वो एक तो रियल बेसिस भी है उसका, और जो बैड लोन्स की रिकवरी है तो वो एक कारण है। प्लस ऑटो स्टॉक्स, ऑब्वियसली आपके यहाँ ऑटो सेल्स मतलब ऑल टाइम रिकॉर्ड हर महीने आप देख रहे हैं कि एक नया रिकॉर्ड दर्ज कर रहे हैं। तो कहीं ना कहीं स्टॉक्स में तेज़ी थी, तो शायद एक मुनाफा वसूली का भी मौका है, लोगों को लगता है, तो वो उसकी वजह है।
जी हाँ, आप आर्थिक पत्रकार हैं, आपकी बारीकी से नज़र रहती है चीज़ों पे, बिकवाली बहुत ज़्यादा हुई है। लेकिन अगर थोड़ा सा हम जो वैश्विक रुझान है, अगर हम थोड़ा सा आगे का सोचें, तो आपके किस तरह के सुझाव होंगे, क्या सलाह होंगे निवेशकों के लिए, किन बातों का ध्यान रखें वो?
देखिए, जैसे मैंने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले भी कहा कि अगर आप स्टॉक मार्केट में आ रहे हैं तो जैसा गौरा कह रही थी कि थोड़ा दिल मजबूत करके आएँ। लेकिन मेरा मानना है कि स्टॉक मार्केट में हिंदुस्तान की जो अर्थव्यवस्था है, मैक्रो इकॉनमी फंडामेंटल, हालांकि हमेशा वो मतलब आपको दिखता नहीं है, ज़रूरी नहीं है कि एक डायरेक्ट कोरिलेशन है, बट यस, ब्रॉडली इंडिया बहुत बड़ी मार्केट है, बहुत बड़ी इकॉनमी है। अब हम मतलब अग्रसर हैं जिस पाथ पर, उसमें हमको लगता है जल्दी हम तीसरी बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था हो जाएंगे दुनिया की। तो मुझे कोई कारण ऐसा नहीं लगता है। और यस, और बहुत तेज़ी से कोई इसमें मार्केट में बहुत बड़ा उलटफेर हो जाएगा, बहुत नीचे आएगी, ऐसा भी मुझे बिल्कुल नहीं लगता है। हाँ, ये ज़रूर है कि अगर आप आ रहे हैं तो इमीडिएट ये आज पैसा लगाएं और ये सोचें कि कल आपको मुनाफा मिलेगा, तो वो मैं अगर उस रणनीति से आ रहे हैं तो बिल्कुल आपके साथ जस्टिस नहीं होने वाला है। तो थोड़ा आइए, थोड़ा यहाँ रुकिए, थोड़ा टाइम लगेगा। हालांकि और बाकी हिंदुस्तान की जो मार्केट्स हैं जिस तरह से वेल रेगुलेटेड हैं, तो मुझे कोई इसमें वो नहीं लगता, संदेह नहीं लगता, और हिंदुस्तान की अर्थव्यवस्था लगातार जो है ग्रोथ स्टोरी वो इंटैक्ट है।
फंडामेंटल्स आर स्ट्रॉन्ग।
जी हाँ, तो हमारे पिटारे में अभी दुनिया भर की आर्थिक खबरें हैं, चर्चा भी हमारी अभी जारी रहेगी, लेकिन वक्त एक ब्रेक का है, जल्द वापस लौटते हैं।
सुरक्षित सेवानिवृत्ति के साथ साथ एनपीएस आपको गरिमापूर्ण जीवन जीने में भी मदद करता है। 18 से 70 वर्ष की आयु के बीच का कोई भी भारतीय नागरिक और कॉर्पोरेट कर्मचारी एनपीएस से जुड़ सकता है। किसी भी पीओपी जैसे बैंकों, एनबीएफसी के जरिए या npstrust.org.in के ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म के जरिए आप अपना एनपीएस खाता खोल सकते हैं। सुरक्षित भविष्य के लिए एनपीएस जरूरी है।
ब्रेक के बाद आप सबका स्वागत है। एशिया और यूरोप के बाजार का हाल जानते हैं। दक्षिण कोरिया के कोस्पी को छोड़ दे तो सभी प्रमुख एशियाई शेयर सूचकांक आज गिरावट के साथ बंद हुए। कोस्पी 1.03% बढ़कर बंद हुआ। इधर चीन का शंघाई कंपोजिट सूचकांक 1.95%, हांगकांग का हैंग सेंग 1.55% और सिंगापुर का स्ट्रेट्स टाइम्स 0.60% और जापान का निक्केई 1.10% गिरकर बंद हुए हैं। दिन के कारोबार में ज्यादातर यूरोपीय बाजार भी गिरावट के साथ कारोबार कर रहे थे। अंतिम समाचार मिलने तक लंदन का फुट्सी 0.65% और फ्रांस का कैक 0.07% के नीचे कारोबार कर रहा था। दूसरी ओर जर्मनी का डेक्स मामूली बढ़त के साथ कारोबार कर रहा था।
A look at the US markets. US stocks ended nearly flat yesterday as investors awaited key economic indicators, particularly inflation data, which could influence the Federal Reserve's decision regarding interest rates. The Dow Jones ended 0.25% down. On the other hand, the S&P 500 finished 0.17% up, and the Nasdaq Composite Index lost 0.37% up. So, Siddharth, we know, and you earlier also shared, that somewhere the US Fed response has been built into the markets. You know, in an earlier scenario where FII flight money, FII leaving the market would actually really, crash the market, or the sentiment would be really down. But of late, we've seen that the market moves its profit. Seldom is it global sentiment. It's market profit booking or some internal trigger or just some kind of a correction, because the market has been going up for some time. Do you see this change in the Indian market?
Yes, as what you're saying is a new trend which is being built in. FIIs markets do get impacted once if we witness an FII selling. But of late, if you see, the trend is that we are getting too many retail investors into the Indian market, and that is really changing the scenario. Basically, the influence that the FIIs probably command in the Indian markets would gradually start getting as we go with time. I think that influence or the that kind of impact that they had on the Indian market, sudden withdrawal by FIIs would see. But here what happens when we see the FIIs withdrawing or selling heavily, we do see the domestic institutional investors as well as the Indian retail investors, which a large number of them are coming directly into the market, plus a big chunk is coming through the mutual fund route. Right. So that is why we are seeing a surge in the systematic investment plan, that month by month, if we look at the assets under management, I think, and it's almost now we are close to like some 50 trillion rupees. Right. So that asset under management via the mutual fund route is, and the biggest challenge now that we would start talking about it in some time, I think, is for the banks, Indian banks, because the younger generation is coming to the markets. It is not keeping its money with the banks as fixed deposits. So I think now banks will also have to ponder going ahead. They will also, because they need money. Okay. So how do they get the money? Because money is being routed in a big way by the younger generation into the Indian stock market. And that is what, as you rightly said, probably reducing the influence of FIIs in the Indian market.
Right. So when we talk of bank savings, small savings have actually been one of the pillars of economic stability. Earlier, when there were global meltdowns and crashes, I think India managed to, harbor itself a little more safely than other economies and revived faster. Do you think losing this pillar of small savings, or should we actively encourage it, because it has been a pillar somewhere?
Yeah. See, what will happen is, I think we will find a new, since this scenario is still just evolving, I think situation will, I think once this situation comes up, people will start looking at solutions. I think one solution could be banks start looking at the debt, raising money through the debt market or bond markets.
Okay.
The second could be the money, this money which is coming to the stock market could be funneled back to the banks in some way, through the debt instruments or whatever. So I think all the stakeholders, once they come to this situation is still not that alarming, but yes, this new scenario is posing a challenge to the banking sector, and they will have to prepare themselves with this.
Right. And one question on India's growth story and the global story. If you compare these two stories, do you also feel that somewhere, when we talk of FIIs or even of domestic investment, that these are changes which are short term, inflation in the US to be brought under control, their rates to change, but somewhere in the longer run, we are not seeing a very positive story as far as Europe or the US or even China, at least for the mid to the long term. Do you think that somewhere is a bigger belief for people wanting to invest in India?
Yes, right. Very rightly, as you rightly said, what is happening is, see, we don't see signs of recovery still. I think that time is still far away for, if you're talking about the US economy, if you're talking about China, if you're talking about Europe. So I think the year 24 probably people say is going to be a challenging year in terms of global economy. Obviously, if global economy is in trouble, we also get affected.
Right.
But yes, being a big, since our macro fundamentals, the way we have tackled inflation, so I think even we were under pressure in terms of our exports sometime back. They have started reviving now. So I think all in all, yes, it will be a challenging year. And as you rightly say, the flight, but I would say people coming into India, obviously, because there are very few economies in the world where you can actually go invest and make money. India is currently, yes, we are very well positioned in terms of our fundamental growth story. So I think that also is a reason which is pulling or attracting investors in a big way into India.
Right. We move on to our next story. During negotiations on fisheries subsidies at the ongoing World Trade Organization Ministerial Conference, India emphasized the importance of sustainable fishing practices and its long-held position that responsible fishing is deeply ingrained in the culture and practices of its diverse fishing communities. India stressed the need for any future agreement on fisheries subsidies to consider the interests and livelihoods of these communities who rely on marine resources for their survival. They argued that while subsidies historically contributed to overfishing, they're also crucial for developing nations like India to develop and diversify their fishing sectors and ensure food security for their fishermen. India highlighted the concept of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities, the CBDRRC, and special and differential treatment, S&DT, as guiding principles for a fair agreement. These principles aim to balance the needs of the developed and developing countries in international agreements. Siddharth, these two principles that we're talking about, could you tell us a little more about these?
See, what we are saying is that one fit cannot be replicated to everybody. So basically what India has a large population of small fishermen. We have about, I think, if I'm right, 100 million fishermen, and almost, I think, 60 to 61, somewhere around 60% of them are still below poverty line.
Okay.
So to say that we'll take back subsidies, or to say restrict them the area under which to which they go and operate for fishing, this thing. So I think all that India is trying to say is that you can't have one fit for everyone. A big developed nation can have different guiding principles. For a developing nations, it has to be different.
Our realities are different.
Yeah. So basically, we are trying to basically look at, and we have a big population, people who are dependent on fishing as a livelihood. and most of them, as I said, are below poverty line.
Right.
Plus, they do not have the most advanced fishing equipments because they're still doing the traditional fishing. And plus, so we are also pushing that old this thing of 200 nautical miles, they should be allowed for distant sea fishing. So I think in a way, so basically we are saying that developing nations cannot be, the same parameters or this thing cannot be for the developed nations, would imposing it on the developing nations.
Right. We're going to go in for a short break. We'll come back soon with our other stories. Stay with us.
अच्छे रिटर्न के साथ साथ एनपीएस आपका आत्मसम्मान भी सुनिश्चित करता है। 18 से 70 वर्ष की आयु के बीच का कोई भी भारतीय नागरिक और कॉर्पोरेट कर्मचारी एनपीएस से जुड़ सकता है। किसी भी पीओपी जैसे बैंकों, एनबीएफसी के जरिए या npstrust.org.in के ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म के जरिए आप अपना एनपीएस खाता खोल सकते हैं। सुरक्षित भविष्य के लिए एनपीएस जरूरी है।
ब्रेक के बाद आपका स्वागत है श्रोताओं। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने आज 21,000 करोड़ रुपए से अधिक की प्रधानमंत्री किसान सम्मान निधि योजना की 16वीं किस्त जारी कर दी है। पीएम किसान एक केंद्रीय योजना है जिसका उद्देश्य देश भर में सभी खेती योग्य भूमि वाले किसान परिवारों को कुछ मानदंडों के अधीन वित्तीय सहायता प्रदान करता है। योजना के अंतर्गत किसानों को सालाना 6,000 रुपये की राशि 2,000 रुपये की 3 समान किस्तों में सीधे बैंक खातों में भेज जाती है। सिद्धार्थ जी, ये एक महत्वाकांक्षी योजना है, इसको लेकर आप क्या सोचते हैं और क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
देखिए, जैसा आपने कहा कि आज तकरीबन 21,000 करोड़, शायद जो सालाना हमारा इसका बजट है पीएम किसान का 60,000 करोड़ है, और मुझे लगता है इससे एक बहुत बड़ा सपोर्ट आता है। 3 बार हम इसको सालाना एक साल में 3 बार ये किश्त दी जाती है 2-2 हज़ार रुपए की, और इससे एक बहुत बड़ा सपोर्ट आता है जो किसान को बीज खरीदना है या फर्टिलाइज़र या जो भी कुछ उसके इनपुट्स हैं उनके लिए जो उसको ज़रूरत होती है अपने कृषि उसके लिए, तो उसमें एक बहुत बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण इसका रोल है। और अब मुझे लगता है ये हमारे जो कृषि क्षेत्र है या किसानों के लिए ये एक इनग्रेन्ड हो गया है, तो ये मुझे लगता है इसके बहुत पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट है।
So when we talk of, these small inputs, I think the timing of them is also very important, and that must be also in the government's mind that, what is the time, at what time do you give aid, even for SHGs, small groups. And I think we'll want to understand from you that, when we look at India developing macro picture, big thing, but it's the small things which which have an effect on the person right at the bottom of the pyramid. So how far do these schemes go and how effective have they been so far?
See, if you talk of agriculture, so Indian agriculture, probably if you see, we have been emphasizing, we've been telling Indian farmers that you try and move out also or diversify, and plus I think the different ways we have been trying to reward our farmers. So I think this was one of the innovative schemes which was started, you actually giving cash directly to the farmer. Plus, in terms of, we have also, as the Prime Minister said few years back, that we aim to double the farmers' income.
Right.
So what have we done? We have tried to raise the MSP on a regular basis. If you see the trend, I think the highest, and we have also assured them. We've not probably assured them through some statute, but yes, we say that at least 50% over your cost you will be rewarded. And currently, if you see, there are states where, especially I would mention Punjab, the farmer is at least getting over its cost, the cost of cultivation, he's being rewarded through MSP by almost 150%.
Okay.
So, and I think the lowest there is, I think, close to 40% or something. So I think in terms of MSP, better seeds, so better irrigation facilities, I think it's an holistic approach, and that is why our agriculture is sustaining, and we need to, because we are a large population to feed. And I would say, as a while back both of us were mentioning that today we are also talking about a fodder bank, which I think is a novel idea, because we are looking at food security for all of us, but what about the food security of our livestock? Right. So I think it's a great idea.
Right. So you're talking of the fodder thing. Our next story is on that. The central government is planning to launch a fodder bank in various regions of India to improve storage, transport and logistical problems faced by livestock farmers. Speaking at the Fodder Symposium 2024 today in New Delhi, Animal Husbandry, Dairying and Fisheries Minister Parshottam Rupala said that it is aimed at bringing in livestock feed and storing it to improve milk production and its productivity. Mr. Rupala said that the fodder bank will be logistically and scientifically curated. He added that the government is also planning to award state governments for their work in the dairy sector to inculcate healthy competition. Mr. Rupala noted that fodder is an untapped sector and more possibilities are there. He said that despite India being the biggest milk producer, it lags in productivity per cattle. The minister urged the day-long symposium to discuss novel ideas in the field of fodder and dairy production, such as gene editing, global trends, and induction of private players. So a lot of headspace to grow in this industry for us?
Yes, Gaura, absolutely. Because if we are telling our farmers to diversify from paddy and wheat cultivation, you need to also build that kind of infrastructure. You need to encourage them with that. So I think it's a very, very innovative idea, I would say again, and I think the Prime Minister has rightly emphasized that we should try and place these banks at least one in all the four corners of the country, east, west, north, south. At least we should have one fodder bank, and I think that is the basic need. And as your story rightly said, farmers at times have to carry it from one place to another. So we will have to ensure and a continuous supply and a quality supply, because I think I was attending a seminar yesterday, so somebody was really rightly emphasizing that we need to build capacities, infrastructure if we want to have people shifting from agriculture to these kind of ancillary activities.
Right, so fisheries, livestock, and I think these are areas maybe not have been center stage for long, and it's high time that they get their importance. Moving on to our next story, oil prices pulled back today as the prospect of delays to US interest rate cuts and a rise in US crude stocks offset a boost from a potential extension to OPEC plus supply curbs. In intraday trade, Brent crude futures were trading around 0.85% lower at $82.95 when reports last came in. US West Texas Intermediate crude futures saw a decline of almost 0.96% to trade at $78.11 when reports last came in. So oil demand, as now winter months are also going, China still hasn't come up to expectations in terms of picking up and wanting to purchase. The OPEC plus decisions, where do you think they'll go?
I think oil at 80 is a very big plus for India. So I think that's what currently we are very comfortable, because once oil companies, because there are inflationary pressures also on us, especially on the food side. So I think oil at 80, I think it's a plus for our marketing companies, because I think most of them are booking profits. I think there was a time when there were huge losses built on them.
Right.
So I think oil at 80 is a big positive for us.
Right.
सोना और चांदी का हाल जानते हैं। मल्टी कमोडिटी एक्सचेंज में आज अप्रैल अनुबंध के लिए सोना गिरावट के साथ कारोबार कर रहा था। अंतिम समाचार मिलने तक सोना 181 रुपये की गिरावट के साथ 62,120 रुपये प्रति 10 ग्राम पर कारोबार कर रहा था, जबकि मई अनुबंध के लिए चांदी 388 रुपये की गिरावट के साथ 70,670 रुपये प्रति किलोग्राम पर कारोबार कर रही थी।
Siddharth, thank you so much for coming to our program. And now, before we close, a look at the headlines. Benchmark indices stumble over 1%. Sensex declined 790 points. Nifty ends below 22,000 level. Tepid sentiment seen in global markets. Major Asian stocks end lower, except South Korea's Kospi. And central government to launch fodder bank in various regions of India to improve storage, transport and logistics. And that's all in today's program. Namaskar.
नमस्कार।
वित्तीय सुरक्षा के साथ साथ एनपीएस गर्व का अनुभव भी देता है। 18 से 70 वर्ष की आयु के बीच का कोई भी भारतीय नागरिक और कॉर्पोरेट कर्मचारी एनपीएस से जुड़ सकता है। किसी भी पीओपी जैसे बैंकों, एनबीएफसी के जरिए या npstrust.org.in के ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म के जरिए आप अपना एनपीएस खाता खोल सकते हैं। सुरक्षित भविष्य के लिए एनपीएस जरूरी है। इस कार्यक्रम के प्रायोजक नेशनल पेंशन सिस्टम एनपीएस। अपना बेहतर कल सुनिश्चित करने के लिए एनपीएस जरूरी है।
मार्केट